Welcome to the Lead Every Day show. Our mission is to see a world well led. And our strategy to get there? To empower leaders like you to lead every day. So let's get to work.
I got a question for you, Mark. How much time do you spend thinking? Welcome to the Lead Every Day show. I'm Randy Gravitt.
I'm Mark Miller.
And that's the question you're going to have to answer today because one of our listeners wants to know, how much time do you spend thinking? We've been in these questions. I know you guys have been listening here for the last few weeks. We've been talking questions to really help us all become better leaders. You guys have given us some fascinating questions, really helped us think about some stuff. Hopefully we've given you all kind of tactics and things to help you really accelerate your leadership journey here. But Mark, what a good question today. How much time do you spend thinking? I'll
Let me go first.
I'll let you go first.
As much as possible.
Yeah, it's great.
As much as possible. I'm fearful that far too many leaders aren't spending enough time thinking. I know that sounds crazy, but I think if we're not careful, we can become so busy doing that we're actually not thinking, and that we're in a weird kind of leadership autopilot. And I don't even think it's a thing. Yeah. I don't know that you can, because what's going to happen is you're going to default to what you've done previously. And one thing we know about the future is what got us here won't get us there.
Yeah, it has us here.
So if you're in this leadership autopilot, which again I would define as the absence of conscious thought, I think you're in trouble.
It goes back a little bit to what we've been talking about these past few episodes. We've had a couple of times where we've talked about it's why we do something. And I think that comes from our thinking. We have to spend some time connecting the dots of the strategy and the vision.
Purposeful, intentional.
Dynamic awareness. We talked about even yesterday about change. I fear that too many leaders are, the phrase we've used sometimes is they confuse activity with accomplishment. We're busy. We got a lot going on, but if we don't spend time really thinking about what we're doing and why we're doing it, we can miss.
Yeah, and you can also miss because you're probably doing what you're doing to the best of your ability. Right. I made a comment several days ago that you get no credit for doing the wrong things well.
Yeah.
And so what has worked in the past will not take you successfully into your future.
That to me is a good reminder as well that what's worked in the past, sometimes that's comfortable to me. It works. This is what I'm good at. This is what I'm confident at. This is how I got here. And there's great things about that.
Yeah.
But if I'm going to go to another place, I got to reimagine sometimes.
Yeah.
And that comes from thinking. I mean,
yeah.
I've got to reinvent continuously. We talk about we've got to innovate. I mean, there's the world we live in today is just not going to be tomorrow's world, and we've got to lead ourselves to think differently about that world. This is a huge opportunity for most of us.
Yeah.
So the question is, how much time do you spend thinking? I want to change the viewer's question. How much time should we spend thinking? Let's see if we can give them some things that they can think about, and where does it fit on your calendar? Let's talk about some of that.
Yeah. All right, so I'll draw your attention to some work we did several years ago. We ended up publishing a book called Smart Leadership. And there's a chapter in there called Stop and Think. And it was actually one of our bigger findings from a multi-year, multi-million-dollar research project. And it was that the best leaders intentionally, purposefully, and strategically put time on their calendar to think. It's crazy, right? We, in the book, called it margin, which I'm not sure that's what we should have called it, because some will push back. As one leader said, I don't have time for a vacation. I said, well, that's fine. That's actually not what we're talking about. We chose to define margin as a leadership discipline. And I've been asking leaders ever since we did that work, when do you have time set aside on your calendar to reflect, to assess, to think, to create, and to plan? And I've literally had some leaders say they don't. And my response is, who's doing that?
Yeah.
If the leader's not doing that. So you asked the question about make it maybe a little more tactical. Let me share one bit of research, which I don't think it's the answer people are looking for, but I think it may be directional as you find your answer. Harvard did a study where they looked at the calendars of CEOs for 12 years. Now, I would love to do a deep dive into all that data.
Yeah.
But one of the things they discovered is these men and women spent 28% of their time every week alone. Now, somebody said to me, what do you think they were doing? I think they were reflecting, assessing, thinking, creating, and planning. Now, I've never been a CEO, but I know it's a pretty big job. And I don't assume that that's the answer for you or the answer for me, that we should spend 28% of our time every week thinking. I don't know your answer. But I would say this: the bigger your hopes, the bigger your dreams, the bigger your challenges, the bigger the obstacles, the more time you're going to need to think.
Yeah, I heard you say it one time, the higher up you go in an organization, which kind of goes along with what you're saying, the more time you need to spend alone for that thinking time. And we would never say you need to be lonely. I mean, I've heard people say it's lonely at the top. It shouldn't
Not if
be
you take
lonely.
somebody with you.
Not if you take somebody with you and you have community and all that stuff we've been talking about. But there are going to be times you're going to have to put yourself in a room and you're going to have to think about some of these things. And it's cool. I was at a meeting with we were at a big meeting with an organization last year, and the president of the company stood up and he was talking about the importance of thinking. And he said, one of the things you should think about if you're struggling with this is go think about your thinking. I mean, let's start with that. Just like if you like, what do I think about? Somebody might be asking, what's the first thing I think about? I mean, hopes, dreams, plans, all that stuff. It's great, but I'm not in the habit of. Go think about your thinking. Go think about. Spend an hour thinking about, like, how much time do I need to think? When do I need to think? Who do I need to think with? It's not just you being alone,
And what do I need to think about?
What do we need to think about together with the team? I mean, there's some of those things. Again, it goes back a little bit to that dynamic awareness comes out of some of these think times. And yeah, there's times you need to have a think tank with some people, but there's times you need to get in a room and just say, okay, legal pad.
Yeah.
It's not time to check your phone. It's not time to
do email or text. It's deep thinking.
This is deep thinking. Exactly.
Yeah. And so here's what I'd say about that. The biggest problems you face and the biggest opportunities you want to seize, you're not going to solve those issues driving to work or in the shower. Yeah. I mean, you may solve some things in those mundane moments, and that's great, and you take all the victories you can get. But deep thinking is going to be required for your biggest obstacles, your biggest challenges, your biggest problems. And you need to devote some time to that. If you're not doing it, chances are nobody's doing it.
Yeah, that's right. That's great. All right. So hopefully that's helpful to you. I know all of you out there who are listening, you got big stuff going on, important stuff. You want to make a difference. You're changing your world and the world around you. It's great. I think you'll do it better if you spend some time thinking about how you're doing that and what you need to do maybe differently. What do you need to double down on? There's a lot of things you could think about. But
let's give them a tactic. Next week, find an hour.
That's great.
1 hour. Now, I don't know. You may need 20 hours. Find 1 hour next week and put a meeting with me on the calendar. Not me, with you.
A think meeting, yeah.
Yeah. And when somebody wants that time, you say, I'm sorry, I've already got a meeting.
Yeah.
And you may find that be the most productive time on your schedule all next week.
Might be the most important hour of the week. I love that reminder. That's great, Mark. All right. I hope you guys will join us as we continue to weed through some of these questions that you've given us. They're so fascinating. Hopefully they're practical and helping you in some very specific ways to get better as a leader. Remember, the best leaders lead every day.